Okay, welcome everybody to Wall Street Reporter's next Superstock live stream from March 17th. We are back with Tetra Bio-Pharma, TBP, Dr. Guy Chamberlain. Guy, welcome back.
Well, thank you for having me back, Jack. It's a pleasure.
Guy, so you got some very exciting news this week. I think there was a little bit of a reaction in the stock, but I don't think the market has really absorbed kind of like what the impact of this is going to be. So I kind of want to dive right into this. Let's talk about this news that you announced about the Health Canada process that you're getting into right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for any biotech that's a non-revenue biotech, getting closer to becoming a revenue company is a major milestone for all shareholders. It's going to, it's the first step, in changing our valuation. If you look at the difference in our valuation versus GW Pharma, you got at least 100-fold difference. And that is mainly due to having a commercialized product approved by the regulator. So their first approval was in 2010 with the UK government. And so we're facing our first approval here in Canada. Okay. People don't necessarily, go ahead.
Okay, and so we're talking, I forgot to mention, we're talking about Reduvo. You're getting so Reduvo now is in the Health Canada, sort of process pipeline.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's what the challenge when we submit a new drug application for a new drug here. It's in Canada. It's a new drug. The regulator obviously goes through it, and if your file is incomplete in any aspect, you just get it rejected at this stage. So for us, a major step has been crossed in that the regulator obviously finished their homework, sent us back, and we have basically everything we need to respond and provide the answers and move to second base, basically the next phase of the evaluation. And now the clock starts and the government starts reviewing the file, asking questions, and we respond as fast as we can and to keep the ball rolling. But this is a very important step.
Okay, so what markets does will Reduvo be addressing when it's approved?
Well, Reduvo is going to be approved for the same indications as Marinol and Dronabinol are approved in the USA, which is for basically CINV, the chemo-induced nausea and vomiting, which is an $80 million market potential here in Canada, and also for some loss of appetite in HIV/AIDS patients. So that's major. We know there's also a lot of off-label use by pain patients, but think about it. Here in Canada, the Supreme Court had told the government that patients had the right to access to THC as a medication. The government, through its medical cannabis program, created kind of a taxation around getting access to medical cannabis, and you can't get access to it through your physician. The majority of physicians won't prescribe it. You can't get it from your pharmacist. So in a sense, the government's plan is kind of deficient from that point of view. The best path for patients is finally getting THC approved as a prescription drug, where it will get reimbursed by the governments and your physician will be able to prescribe it, and you will get it dispensed by your pharmacist, who will also be able to give you guidance on any potential drug interactions with your other medications, which right now you cannot get here in Canada. So, patients have been at loss still.
So this is going to be, when this is approved, this would be the first THC-based drug in Canada.
Well, to be technically correct, 15 years ago, it was withdrawn from the Canadian market. The first approvals of THC drugs were in 1985. The manufacturers had removed them from the market because they were not stable, the THC. There's a lot of manufacturing issues. So when you want to resubmit a THC drug here in Canada, after 10 years of being removed from the market, the clock goes back to zero, and you're now back to a new drug status, which for a biotech like us, that was perfect. So obviously it's not a generic status, it's a new drug, and it becomes a stepping stone. Look at Tetra's pipeline. We have what we call our PP02, which is a patented sublingual sustained release of THC. That's next. We're going to go after opioid reducing claims. We have our COMS, which also has a THC in it. So you can see the strategic move of how Tetra is going to be able to use this first in and strategically open the path to make it easier for its next drugs. But from a shareholder point of view, obviously, the most important is the dramatic change in value from being a revenue generating to become finally a revenue generating company.
Okay. And okay, so what if you can just walk us through kind of the process for the Health Canada approval, in case I don't know, the US audience, other people may not be familiar. So
Sure.
what is what is it kind of what's the status of Reduvo right now in that process, and when, I guess the real question is, when do you expect it to get approval?
Sure. A typical new drug has kind of a first stage of evaluation. The first thing both FDA and Health Canada are going to look at is your manufacturing file. So all the validations, your stability program on the THC. Basically, can you get this drug to patients, safely from a quality point of view? It doesn't degrade in the person's house, so on and so forth. They're going to look at all that science. If that science is reasonable, then the medical and the toxicologists begin the review of the drug. And throughout that process, you're getting questions. At one point in that process, the inspectorate is triggered. So then the regulator has to come and visit and inspect Tetra to be sure we're compliant with the GMPs. If we're not compliant, then game over. So obviously all those steps are now ongoing with a company like Tetra. Keep one thing in mind. If I told you that this drug had been previously approved and on the market, and you know very well the body of evidence for THC in terms of clinical trials. So Tetra is not concerned of addressing, say, the clinical aspects in a drug review of a new drug with everything that's out there in every study, say, Tetra has even done itself. The biggest key was really securing the manufacturing, because that was the reason it was previously removed. So Tetra had announced that it partnered with a U.S. pharmaceutical company that obviously makes this and has been making it for decades in the United States under the FDA's approval. So we're very confident that we will be able to get this through.
Okay, and so essentially, the regulatory pathway that you have for a lot of your drugs is much faster than traditional biotech approvals, correct?
No, it's the same thing.
Same thing. Okay,
it's very long. It can be over. It can get close to a year sometimes. It's very long, the review process for a new drug.
Okay, but in terms of but Reduvo has, I guess, is it an alternative regulatory path, or like what makes?
No, it's kind of an unconventional one. So Health Canada basically agreed with kind of some of our regulatory arguments that a lot of the body of evidence from the clinical aspect has been recognized by them already, and obviously we have let's say a reduced type file on the clinical front to provide the regulator, which is completely normal, because they obviously had reviewed it before and approved it. And in any case, our medical cannabis market is based on it. It's based entirely on the Marinol file.
Okay, and so when do you expect to again get final approval and to start generating revenues? That's kind of the main.
Yeah, that is the key. Theoretically, if the clock doesn't get stopped, because if you take too much time in answering a question from a regulator, they stop the clock. So they'll claim, for example, it's a 180-day process type of thing, but the 180 days can actually stretch out if they have to stop the clock. They always look good in terms of their performance publicly, but you have to be sure you meet those deadlines. That's a game, and that's where a company like Tetra is in a very good position. In our first interview, I told you kind of about our employees. We don't have people who are learning how to do this for the first time. All of our employees come from other pharmas. So we've been doing DINs our whole careers. So everybody is used to this process. I call it a ping pong match, where they throw you a question, you got like less than 24 hours to send the answer, and you got to be ready. So we're structured for that. We've done that before. It's not our first DIN. Shareholders should remember we had applied for some before. So we're able to get products through this process. And just look at our record. Our record of delivering on clinical trials with both Health Canada and FDA should show people that, we've been achieving these. And we already had our DEL, our first drug establishment license, what Canada basically calls its GMP drug approval. We had our first one was granted to us, our license, in 2018. So we're in a very good position to deliver on this drug.
Okay, and when do you expect it to be on the market and generating revenues?
If the timeline is correct, for sure by the
best case, let's say best case situation.
Best case by Q4, we're selling.
Okay, so let's say November, December, or it might take into this time next year. So, but it's essentially it's near term. So it's not.
It's near term, yes. I mean, for sure. I mean, theoretically, October is possible. So that's why I say Q4, and Q4 is definitely safe, and that's the prediction. And keep in mind, like I said, this drug is not really totally new. It's on the market in the States. So our partner does sell it in the United States. So their file must be compliant with the FDA if they're still selling it. So you can just kind of read between the lines that most of this data has been reviewed by the FDA. So Health Canada is now just going to review this data and confirm that it meets the drug standards.
Okay. And so in terms of, can you talk about some of the off-label uses of the drug potentially, and how with the market opportunity there?
Yeah. So if you look at the market potential, and basically if you look at completely what we call the off-label sales right now of Marinol and Dronabinol, over 95% of the prescriptions of a product like even Nabalon is off-label, being used for pain management. The on-label is actually the CINV. So if you're looking at the potential of a drug like this, it'd be silly for a company like Tetra not to want to really invest into a clinical trial to really study and show the potentials of a drug like this in opioid sparing. Obviously, you see our Reborn trials ongoing. We have the Plenitude ongoing, and we've been developing what we call the PP02, the sublingual version of THC, which is a fully patented, protected new drug. And we've always told shareholders that's the next step. So once I have my Reduvo approved, then you'll see the Reduvo Adversa appear. And that one, yes, we might go after the same claims to get it to the market faster, but obviously we'll be working very, very hard to go and get those opioid-sparing claims, mainly because pain physicians need to see this proven in a trial so we can expand basically the claims and the prescriptions of these drugs. And yes, THC is going to be very safe in the opioid sparing. It's, everybody's concerned about the risk of respiratory depression, but we don't have that with THC. And we have, whether we like it or not, the first THC drug was approved in the United States in 1985. So physicians have a very good experience in prescribing Dronabinol and Marinol safely to patients, and even Nabalon, which is a derivative. So it's not like physicians can't use this very effectively to manage pain control and, basically go after the fight against opioid sparing.
Okay. So basically, Reduvo could be, used as an alternative to opioids.
Correct.
And that could become like the major use of it.
Correct. So as a company, obviously that's been our positioning, is developing cannabinoid-based drugs for fighting basically the overuse of opioids and having an alternative. And we need one very desperately.
Especially right now, because again, I think with the pandemic, everything that's happening, there's a tremendous use of or abuse of it's a serious problem. So this could be very compelling. Okay, but most importantly, you also have so Reduvo is just really going to be the first drug on the market. Guy, can you talk about you talked about it last time, but you have. I mean, this is not where the story ends. I mean, you have within the next 12 months, 2022, you're expecting two more drugs to be on the market. Can you talk about those?
Correctly. If we stay within our, say, pain management type line and CINV type line, Tetra since 2016 has been working on quick sleeve. Everything we've been, focusing on in our pain approach is the use and development, say, of THC drugs. So obviously, having this drug come in, it just helps us leverage even the next drug. So our quick sleeve, the Reborn trial, which is going to start this year, it's going to be a very critical trial, even again, to scientifically prove to people that we can beat morphine in patients. So you can imagine with Reduvo on the market, showing that Reborn really works, people are going to start to see how much effort and demonstration that we do to the medical community, how THC can become a very important tool in the battle against opioid overuse.
Okay, let's jump to some audience questions. Let's see here. I think I kind of touched on this. Do your trials are not as costly as a typical biotech drug trial?
That's a good question. The Reborn trial doesn't, because it's basically a very fast trial. And it's also, you have to look at the study design. So if you look at what we call a crossover design, every patient becomes kind of the comparator. And that allows you to really get, how could I say, a cleaner, in a sense, measure of the variability, because the strength or the power of a trial is based on the number of patients. So when I have a small number of patients, I have how can I say, a challenge of separating the two groups and showing that my drug is really better than placebo because I have small groups. So sometimes that requires a very huge number of patients so that you can actually see the difference. And that obviously drives the price up. In the case of Reborn, the price is really low because I have crossover, so every patient gets the morphine and every patient gets the quick sleeves. So I demonstrate within patient the actual benefit, and that keeps my costs down. Plus, the endpoint is very small. It's time to relief, which is 30 minutes. I do that over 4 weeks. Take the average. That becomes my answer. It's not a 12-week to 6-month type of pain trial that sometimes goes on. Some of the most costly trials are those in arthritis, where they use like the WOMAC scales and things like that, and they look for really changes in functionality and mobility of the patients.
Okay. So Guy, so it's pretty interesting. I mean, you're getting again close to that inflection point where you start generating revenues. This is probably, I don't know, 8, 9, 12 months away, but we're getting very close. What is the marketing plan? Are you going to have a partner for Reduvo, or how are you going? And also, what about other markets outside of Canada that you could
Sure.
sell?
Yeah, so as a small biotech company, we're obviously using a classical model of a small company. So it's basically contract organizations that specialize in the sale, say, of prescription drugs to physicians in the pain network and CINV network. So these are kind of the organizations that we'll be using to sell our drug for us, because we're not going to go out and hire, sales reps and things like that. So that's really, kind of key for us as a company. And you've seen with Dan-Can, the first appetite in getting our drug. So that, this along with the Dan-Can news release is going to generate more appetite for people wanting to work with us and getting access to our drugs and getting them approved in their countries.
Okay, so yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, so the valuation. I mean, the valuation of the company is actually very, very cheap compared to, some of the peers, typical companies in the space, especially when you have that near term. You have that near term revenue potential. It's this is no longer one of these things that's 10 years out. It's near term.
Yes, if you look at GW's just before they got their first drug approval, it was much higher than we are right now.
What was the valuation before the first drug approval?
If you go back to 2010, I believe they were still trading over $5 back then. So it was much higher than ours.
Okay, it was like dollar wise, was it like
definitely in the dollars. Oh yeah,
500 million plus, somewhere in that range.
I'm pretty sure. Yes.
Okay. Yes, I mean it's interesting. So we get a couple questions here, kind of relating to that, because I think most investors think that really this is a stock that really should be a Nasdaq stock. That's kind of where the best healthcare valuations are.
Absolutely.
Do you have any plans? I guess a question from Neen, I believe is the name. Would you do a reverse split at some point?
Oh, not at all right now. I mean, right now we're focusing on creating and building our value. That's our key priority. Yes, we have the NASDAQ as one of our goals, but our first thing is to really drive, the value up. There's no point of, doing a reverse split at this point. It's, just going to hurt the confidence with the shareholders, which you don't want to do. You want to build on the shareholders' confidence. Show them we're delivering what we promised. We promised them Reduvo. We promised them Reborn. We promised them ARDS. We'll deliver on that.
Okay. So Drake wants you to remind investors of the ARDS therapeutic trial that is about to start.
Yeah, I mean, basically we're in, like I said, the regulatory phase in our last meeting we had. And as soon as we hear back from the regulators, we'll be updating for sure the market and providing them with basically a more detailed timeline of the ARDS drug for sure.
Okay, excellent. Okay, Guy, let's kind of wrap up here. What else can we expect from Tetra in terms of news flow in the next 30 days now?
For sure. If you, how can I say, if you had a look at our deck, or people go back and look at the decks we've had, obviously there's the news on the reborn itself. When the actual, launch of the trial will actually start, there'll be some news. We'll have news on ARDS from the FDA, from Health Canada. These are all things that are in the public domain. And then obviously as a company, I've always liked to have some surprises for shareholders. So I like to keep them waiting that way.
Surprises are good. Surprises or good surprises.
Good surprises, yes, exactly.
Make stocks move. I think that our
Just
audience
like Reduvo. When we pulled the Reduvo out of the hat, we had been working on it for 2 years. People never heard us mention it, but it was actually a very long negotiation to get this proved to the big pharma partner that we were able to deliver, which meant, can you guys actually deliver with your team? Because you're a small company. So obviously they saw that we could. They saw our record, and here we are. So yes, that was a very positive surprise to the market, and that's the type I like.
Interesting. Is it too early to kind of, to give some sort of can you talk about projections? Let's call it in 2022, like revenues or even earnings from the Reduvo. Is it possible to even do that?
Yeah, our CFO and our chief commercial officer are working on that. At one point, we will have to obviously commit ourselves to shareholders and show them what our predictions are of the sales, like any company that starts to, to do the revenues generating. So that's going to come for sure. At this point, I'm not going to be the one who's going to, defend that right now, but the CFO and the chief commercial officer are working all those details out, and obviously looking at the cheapest options too, because like I said, we have to get a sales force that's contractual. So all of that has to be, get the best submissions and put all of that together along with the marketing pitch, and work very hard at getting the reimbursement for patients, which is key to the model, key to the penetration.
Okay, so excellent. So it seems like things are really on track. This is again, this is the type of thing that we like on this the next super stock platform, is those companies which they're right at that inflection point. There's this catalyst, there's news flow, the stock, and especially stock that's undervalued compared to other companies in the space and other peers. So things are looking very good. Guy, thank you for joining us again, and we look forward to hearing more from Tetra in the coming weeks.
Don't worry. Like I said, my job is to surprise you with good news. So just hold on.
Fantastic. We'll see you soon. Thank you, Guy.
Thanks, Jack.
Okay. Great stuff from Tetra. Let's get ready for our next presenter. We're going to have Reliq on in just a second. Let me just set this up right here. Okay, and okay, is Lisa here? All right, Lisa.
Hello.
Yes. All right. Welcome back. It's good to have you here. Let me just make sure everything is set up here. Okay. Reliq, we got everything spelled correctly on the screen. I just need to make a slight change here. Just check. Put in this comma here. There we go. Okay, fantastic. All right. So I'm just going to do a quick intro for for the edit for the video. So welcome everybody to Wall Street Reporter's next Super Stock live stream, March 17th. We are back with the Reliq Health Tech. Again, for those new to our program, our goal is to bring you those stocks which have that 10x to 100x upside potential. So companies, going after massive market opportunities at a key inflection point, and with multiple catalysts in place. And Reliq definitely has all three of those, and they have a great CEO. Speaking of which, Lisa, again, welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So, it's, congratulations, by the way, on the Florida news this week.
Yeah, no, it's very nice for us to be able to get back into some of these states that were really shut down in terms of healthcare, particularly on the proactive healthcare side during the pandemic. So this is a real positive indicator for us of the way that the U.S. market is moving. So we've been watching the vaccine rollout south of the border. We're Canadian, very closely, and this traction in Florida, where we're now planning to start next month with onboarding this client, is actually an acceleration over where I thought we would be in Florida. We thought that it would take until the second half of the year before Florida would really be able to reopen at all in terms of the kind of proactive healthcare that we support through our platform. So this is a real positive development, and we're starting to see similar developments in Texas. So and obviously other states, but those were two of the states where we had clients, but were really stalled out by the pandemic. So this is a very positive development for us, and it's very exciting. Obviously, anytime we sign a new client, and it's also indicative. I think we've spoken before about how skilled nursing. Well, then specifically in this market segment. So, skilled nursing facilities weren't really a market segment for us until about a year ago when Medicare and Medicaid introduced penalties for them around readmissions. So, it just speaks to how much traction we're starting to see in that completely new market segment. So there's just tremendous room for growth there.
Okay, so we're going to kind of dive right into this, but I think what's important about this news right now with the Florida contract, why I think it's an important milestone is this is really I think this is the fourth major contract you announced in like the last 6 weeks or so. So it really shows that the company really is not just at that inflection point, but it's already moving beyond it. And this is it's important because this is what you talked about when you first came on our platform, and you've been delivering, which is important that this is happening. So let's kind of get into this news. It's an interesting deal. You're going to be deploying, what is it, the IUGO, the telehealth technology at 25 of these skilled nursing facilities. This is what the concept is, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. So the skilled nursing facility market segment, they're very low margin businesses inherently. And with COVID, they've been hit really hard because you get, a few COVID outbreaks in a skilled nursing facility where a lot of people end up positive, and you end up with a real hit to the business. So, one thing that we do that's really enabling for the skilled nursing facility industry is we're creating new revenue streams for them. So their clinicians, a lot of the patients who come into skilled nursing don't actually have a family doctor. So they'll be using the emergency room as their family doctor. That's incredibly common with the Medicaid population in particular. So these physicians have an opportunity to work with these patients post-discharge. There's penalties if these patients are readmitted within 60 days of discharge from the skilled nursing facility. So our transitional care management module really helps to prevent those readmissions and save the financial penalties. But beyond that, the physicians at the skilled nursing facilities can provide annual wellness visits for patients for long periods post-discharge, and they can add them to remote patient monitoring or our behavioral health integration platforms. And that's entirely new revenue for the skilled nursing facilities. And it's doing something really socially important because it's catching these patients who don't have ongoing medical care, who are relying on the ER as their family doctor, which is not good medicine. That's not a good way.
Lisa, I think you should re-emphasize right now the value proposition that you're offering. Again, give us walk us through those numbers because it's an amazing value.
Yeah, so for a skilled nursing facility that's operating at a barely breaking even and very narrow profit margins, because these are completely new revenue streams and they're very high profit, it completely changes the business model for skilled nursing. So they can generate hundreds of dollars per patient per month on an ongoing basis after the patient leaves the facility. So, that's really key, is that these patients used to have a kind of finite revenue cycle for the skilled nursing facilities, which was just the revenue they generated while the patient was admitted. But now they can generate revenue for years after the patient is discharged by providing wellness visits, remote patient monitoring, and behavioral health integration and other services afforded by our platform. And the real social benefit is that these patients who previously had no one following their chronic diseases on a day-to-day basis now will have access to ongoing care, consistent care, and they'll get better health outcomes as a result. And the the reason that the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services have allowed for skilled nursing facilities to start to offer this post-discharge care, and that's quite new, that's a little bit over a year old, is really because these patients that they're catching, aren't being caught anywhere else in the system. And so by having that follow-on care from the skilled nursing facility, you do keep these patients from using the ER as their family doctor, and one ER visit is $15,000. So, for less than $500 a year, we're keeping these patients from incurring hundreds of thousands of dollars in healthcare costs, and we're giving them much better health outcomes and quality of life. But for the skilled nursing facilities, it's potentially millions of dollars in new revenue at a very high profit margin as compared to their core business, which is very low margins.
So there's really kind of two value propositions for your, okay, so there's two things for these skilled nursing facilities. Basically the value prop for them, essentially this is like a no-brainer for them to kind of use your technology, because now they're going to get a recurring revenue stream. It's going to make a massive difference in their margins.
Yeah.
For the insurance companies, the remote patient monitoring for again, for chronic cases. I think you went through some of the numbers. Basically, I think you said like 20% of these people 20% of the population that's in the chronic care will end up in, have a major event that's going to cost, could cost like six figures.
Yeah. Yeah, typically does cost six figures. So on average, 20% of any chronic disease patient population will end up admitted to hospital at least once during the course of a year, because these patients have complex chronic conditions. So, diabetes and hypertension are the two that people talk about the most, but, those are rarely found in isolation, and they lead to things like congestive heart failure and chronic kidney disease. So these patients tend to end up, when they are admitted to the hospital, in the intensive care unit, and that's hundreds of thousands of dollars per stay. And so it's a very expensive way of caring for these patients, whereas a more proactive approach like ours, for less than $500 a year, you can reduce the cost of care for these patients by several orders of magnitude.
Okay, so I mean, I'm just, so again, like if somebody does the math, essentially,
Yeah.
if they're using your technology, it's it's let's call it $500 per patient per year.
Mm-hmm.
If you have let's say 5 patients on it, just use the number 5, it costs them $2,500. Whereas if they don't use it, odds are that one of those 5, because that's 20%, right? If I'm doing my math, one of those 5 is going to end up in the ER, and that's going to cost them $100,000. So $500 versus $100,000. I mean, I could see it doesn't take a rocket scientist to kind of.
Exactly. I mean, from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services perspective, they can put thousands of patients on our platform and pay for that by just keeping one patient out of the ICU. So it's very, very cost effective, but it's also very good for patients, because every time they end up in the ICU, they come out a little worse than they went in. Not than they went in, than they were before they had the exacerbation that led to them going to the hospital. So if you can catch those exacerbations early, like we do with the platform, and intervene, you can prevent them ending up with permanent damage to the heart or the lungs or the kidneys, and that really long-term, impact not just their quality of life, but also their lifespan.
Okay, so I mean, to me, it seems like this is really it's like a no-brainer for everybody to be, using the you go to the Reliq Health, the platform. So because I mean, just the numbers is just so compelling for everybody. It's like a win-win-win. So my question is, you have 4 of these contracts. Why don't you have like 10 million people, 10 million patients on the platform right now? Like, what is standing in the way between where you are now and getting, let's call it 2 million people on the platform?
Yeah. So, I mean, bear in mind that really it's only over the last 2 years that Medicare and Medicaid have made this as financially compelling for clinicians as it currently is. And when we started out in late 2017 and 2018, it was January 1st, 2018 that Medicare introduced the first billing code for RPM, and it was at a much, much lower level of reimbursement than they are now. And over the last few years, they've validated for themselves that these kinds of initiatives do keep patients out of hospital and do substantially reduce healthcare costs. So they've now got a $100 billion budget devoted annually to this kind of proactive care, with the expectation that'll save them over $1 trillion a year going forward. And for us, onboarding is paced. Sorry.
Oh, so essentially, so Lisa, I want to say, so essentially, this opportunity that you have right now, it created just recently because of this kind of bureaucracy, coding, all that stuff with the insurers.
Well,
and everything.
yeah, exactly. I mean, the payers really didn't know if there was. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so in other words, the opportunity, the financial opportunity didn't exist really. I mean, the medical, the health, the care opportunity existed, but nobody was willing to pay for it. Now they're willing to pay for it. So this is a brand new. Okay.
Yeah, you're not going to, even though doctors do always want the best for their patients, you're not going to get them to start offering new services if there's no reimbursement around it. So, the fact that every year since 2018, Medicare has increased the number of billing codes, increased the size of the reimbursement, really shows that they've confirmed for themselves that there's a real ROI on the investment in proactive care. It's like in healthcare, trying to prevent forest fires versus dealing with raging wildfires in the emergency room or the ICU. And so it's very worthwhile work, but it took Medicare and Medicaid a while to get the data that showed them that, yes, this does actually work and it will reduce healthcare costs. So there's less than 5% of the patient population who qualify for services like ours are currently enrolled in any kind of program. And so it's still a very early stage market, but we've gotten from the point we started in 2017, 2018, where we were real missionaries, to the point where now, this is something that everybody in healthcare wants to adopt. And really, they do need to get through the pandemic. And, with the vaccine rollout, that's why we're expecting such significant growth for our business in the second half of the year. But this is the way that healthcare is going. This is, there's been a fundamental change to healthcare, moving away from the fee-for-service, or the more you see a patient, the more money you make, to, and the less the patient goes into the hospital, the fewer complications the patient has, the more money the physician makes. So, there's a huge appetite, and I think there's a lot more awareness of these billing codes now. So we are getting a lot of inbound sales. A lot of clients come to us, and I think we've talked about this before, but we have hundreds of thousands of patients in our pipeline. So for us, it's really just a question of working with the clients to onboard those patients. That's been very challenging during the pandemic because they're dealing with outbreaks at their facilities, or the physician practice, the physician's been seconded to hospitals to deal with COVID cases. But now that the vaccine rollout has really started to pick up in the States, and everybody's shifting focus back to how do we address this proactive form of care, and how do we, going forward, provide the best possible patient care and make money. And that's really, the answer to that is really a YouGoCare, our platform. So we're that several 100,000 patients that we have in our platform, we'll be working through those over the next year or two with clients. In healthcare, everybody likes to stage their rollout. So you do one facility, then you do 3, then you do 10, and so it's a little bit of getting that snowball going. But once it started, it really picks up speed and size very quickly. So,
and that's what the market likes. The market likes to see that kind of that traction starts to happen. Then all of a sudden it's no longer a story. Then all of a sudden people can actually model the revenues, the earnings, and then okay. So something okay. So very interesting. I just want to mention a couple things. So you have a pipeline right now. You're saying you have a pipeline of several 100,000 patients that are going to be coming onto the system.
So that pipeline is, we've signed contracts with clients, and the patients these are the eligible patients. So the clients may have many, many more patients than that, but these are the patients that qualify under Medicare and Medicaid for our services. So we have several 100,000 patients that are covered under our contracts that we'll be onboarding over the next, 12 to 24 months.
Okay, so we're going to jump into some audience questions. Actually, so Ethan, we're going to go through. I think one of the questions is going to be that kind of the process of onboarding. But there's a couple things I want to kind of address. Is that so you're really at the right place at the right time, and because with the billing codes, with kind of this shift that you're talking about in the healthcare world, where they're kind of moving to this this subscription model, the SaaS model, where it's that recurring revenues, which it helps, and again, it helps everybody. So, the doctor will see the patients regularly. They keep them out of those, those one-time, emergency room events. So it's and really kind of fits perfectly into where the healthcare world is going right now.
Yeah, I mean, we're in the right place at the right time, but there were a lot of years of work that went into positioning ourselves.
Well, the pioneers get the arrows in the back. You know how that works.
Yeah, no. I mean, I'm just saying one of
Yeah.
our greatest competitive advantages is that we've done the work. We have years of clinical data now showing that our platform works. So any new entrant into this market is going to be 2 to 3 years behind us, because you do have to generate that clinical data to prove efficacy before you can get any healthcare clients to take a chance on you. So we did that serious heavy lifting and working with very small clients who maybe weren't as sophisticated as some of the larger networks. So we've done that work, and we've now gotten to a point where we're attracting these much, much larger clients, and they're coming to us because we've built a reputation in the space. But that's not an easy thing to do. So we've done that work, and I think investors getting in now are really benefiting from 5 years of, on the ground heavy lifting that we've done to put us in a position where now it's really just a matter of executing. We've done the missionary work. We've worked with the regulators, figured out what the landscape is and how we fit into the ecosystem, and especially around billing. So we're really uniquely positioned in this market to be the first mover and to really establish ourselves as a standard of care for proactive virtual care.
So I think so it's another, I think, important point that I think investors need to understand. Kind of the value proposition, for RHT is, you have this moat that you've established. I mean, the healthcare industry, they're not just going to go to this telemedicine with anybody. They want somebody that's established, that's already been around. It's a very conservative industry. So I think that actually creates massive value, like for the business.
Yeah, well, and I think if you look at the announcement that Amazon made today, so they're
I was going to ask about Amazon.
They're starting to offer telemedicine. It's basically teledoc. They're doing their own teledoc, and they're doing it for their own employees, but they're starting to make their services available to other employers. And they haven't had anyone sign on yet, but it's very early days. But what's interesting about what they're doing, I think it definitely shows that the industry has changed and there's a real commitment to virtual care. But what it also shows is, where you see the big companies playing is where they're comfortable. So, they like to work with employer-sponsored health plans, particularly if it's self-insuring their own employees, because there's very few regulatory barriers and the prices are higher. And where we see big companies like that always looking to partner or potentially acquire is when they get into the more complex ecosystems like the Medicare and Medicaid ecosystem, which is what we own right now, really. And that's a huge market.
You have this moat, basically, and the only way they can get into it is if they, in theory, would buy Reliq.
Well, it's not even so much a moat as it is, all of these big companies that have done something in healthcare, Google and Apple, who've developed, hardware or apps, and Amazon in this case, they really play to their own strengths. So either the technology side of it, or Amazon's really good at the logistics side of this. So they'll be great at setting up virtual visits and connecting doctors and patients. What they don't know anything about and have very clearly said in the past they don't want to get involved in on their own, so don't want to build up the infrastructure and the in-house expertise, is around these heavily regulated markets like the Medicare and Medicaid market, which is close to 40 million patients right now. So it's $100 billion market. It's a huge high value market, but it's outside of the realm of expertise of companies like Teladoc and Amazon. And so we've had conversations with very large multinationals who've come to us and asked for kind of advice on the healthcare ecosystem. And what they've all said to us is these innovative solutions that are very specialized in terms of their ability to work within these highly regulated spaces. No company, no big company is ever going to invest the time to build that. They're always going to partner or acquire. And so I think it shows that there's significant commitment financially on the part of companies like Amazon to getting into healthcare, but it's still, very clearly shows that what they can do on their own is very limited. It's very much sort of the easy stuff, the just virtual visits, which is really a commodity business. I will say that this is not good news for Teladoc. Amazon is coming in and are going to compete head to head with Teladoc, but and there's a lot of other telemedicine companies, and we certainly have seen over the last few months even a lot of mid-market telemedicine companies coming to us and saying, what we offer post-pandemic isn't even going to be funded by Medicare and Medicaid, or it's going to be funded at a much lower level than in-person visits. So, we need to do something different. And so there's a lot of opportunities for partnerships for a company like ours that brings something really unique to the market and that has demonstrated that we know how to work in this highly regulated space. And we have, credibility and an established brand and reputation in the space. So I think, it shows that there's a lot of dollars coming into healthcare from big companies. But I think it also, really shows that they like to stick to their own expertise when they build their own solutions. And then they like to partner like Teladoc did with Livongo when they get into more specialized approaches to healthcare.
Okay. I think, Lisa, I'm trying to read between the lines here. You're basically, I think you're saying is that, that Reliq would be an attractive acquisition for somebody like an Amazon. I mean, or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
because of this,
it's no secret that a lot of the big technology companies, not just a Google or Apple type technology, but big companies that work in data-driven spaces are looking for opportunities to flesh out their healthcare verticals using some, a novel approach. So a lot of them already do data aggregation or they do telemedicine. These are kind of commodities in the space. But, we've heard from all of them, the reason they work with smaller companies is because they need that innovation and, small companies are nimble. This is something that big companies can't do on their own. So what usually happens is smaller companies like ours, they get the bigger companies like to see you get to a certain kind of minimum patient threshold. But then there's definitely significant, interest from big companies in acquiring companies like ours when you've got a captive patient base and this innovative new technology.
Okay. So, this is I like the way you're dancing around this. So basically, Reliq would be an attractive acquisition for a big player who could write a big check is the concept. Which
definitely. I mean, just the reason I bring up, this is sort of a longer term thing is.
Yeah. I mean, it's not tomorrow. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It might.
No, it's certainly not going to happen tomorrow. But I think the good news about that is we've set ourselves up as a self-sustaining business. We don't need to be acquired in order to scale and be successful. But we don't have to worry so much about being acquired too early and not getting the kind of valuation we think we justify, because these big companies like to buy companies. I mean, look at Livongo. They paid $18.5 billion for that company. That's, really kind of where you start to see acquisitions is when you get companies over the $1 billion valuation, because that's when the big companies with their own internal mechanisms and machinery are actually capable of valuing that company and acquiring it. So, I think the good news is there's a trend to consolidation in this industry. We don't need to be acquired in order to be very successful. But if we were to be acquired, I think the good news is it won't be until we've really achieved a very significant valuation. So we don't have to worry about kind of being bought out early and shareholders not getting the full value out of an acquisition. Pardon me.
Okay. So So basically in plain English, the company.
Yeah.
You don't need to be acquired because I mean you're building out this business. You have this organic growth, etc. But it would be an attractive acquisition. I don't know at what price. If let's say somebody came to you, I mean it might be a little bit early, right? Because probably I'm sure you want to kind of create more value. You want to have I don't know. Let's call it 100,000 patients in the in the system, or a couple 100,000. At that point, I don't know, $10 a share. I don't know. I don't want to throw numbers out.
I mean, obviously we can't predict how the market will value, the company, but I think realistically we'll be $1 billion valuation within the next few years. I won't sort of pin that down any further, but I think as we move through
one way or the other.
That's I think what I would call a near-term goal. And I think that's the point at which we would start attracting attention from potential acquirers. And so, we have no interest in being acquired by anyone until we've at least crossed the $1 billion valuation mark. And I think that fits with the trends in the healthcare industry for, when companies are acquired.
Okay. So I think the kind of the bottom line here is your goal is to get to that $1 billion valuation, which is through the internal growth, and you kind of laid out, on your last slide, on the last time you were on, you had that slide which kind of showed the roadmap to that $1 billion valuation. Can you kind of walk us through that just now? Just again, how would you get there? What's the path?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because the healthcare market has been a little bit volatile, so it's always difficult to predict exactly what multiples will be. But what we've definitely seen over the last few years is that multiples in healthcare are extremely high. So when Teladoc bought Livongo, Livongo was operating either at a loss or very close to, and they got a 77 times revenue multiple. So that's massive. They were doing 240 million in revenue, and they were acquired for 18.5 billion. And so the way that companies in the space are valued, I think our projections in that slide that's on our in our slide deck that's on our website and that I presented here are very conservative. So we're saying we'll do 11 million in revenue this year, 32 million the following year, around 65 million the year after, and that the year after at about 100 million in revenue would be $1 billion valuation company. I think it's much more likely that we will be at $1 billion valuation much sooner. Where healthcare, the capital markets really reward healthcare companies is when you are profitable and showing aggressive growth. We'll be profitable next quarter, so by the end of June, and we're going to be showing very impressive, very rapid, really explosive growth in the second half of this year and for many years to come, because this market is so primed for growth, with less than 5% of the eligible patients already using a solution. So we've got a huge amount of growth ahead of us, and that will be very rapid. So in terms of when do I think we'll be valued over $1 billion, I think that's a near-term occurrence. That's a milestone we expect to hit quite early. But we try to be very conservative in terms of the formal guidance that we provide to the market. And so in the slide deck, we've kind of got that out several years. But I think if you do your homework and you look at software as a service companies and look at the multiples they get when they're showing the kind of growth that we'll have and they're profitable, and they're very compelling multiples.
Yeah, especially again, the space you're in is it's a very space. It's kind of the value, and the valuations are just they keep increasing. They're growing. Yeah. I guess it's the important thing is for investors to understand is that there is kind of your vision for creating that $1 billion valuation, that shareholder value, so that and there's a real path to get there. You're on that path, and again, we're seeing with just this week's announcement is again, the journey to of 1,000 miles begins with the first footsteps. Right, so you already made a bunch of footsteps, and it's getting pretty close. How many? Okay, so let's just run through the numbers. Revenues per patient, how would that translate into this 65 million annual revenues that you expect? Like, for example, the Florida contract, what are those patients going to be generating in revenues for Reliq?
Yep, so they're 5,000 patients at $50 a month, and you're getting up there into pretty compelling revenues. What was I going to? The one thing I want to sort of say about the revenue model and all of that is, keep in mind too that we're looking to uplist onto the NASDAQ next year, and companies on the NASDAQ get much more compelling valuations than companies on the TSX Venture. But in terms of our revenue projections and how that translates to patients, so by the end of this year we'll have roughly 25,000 patients. By the end of the following year we'll have easily 60,000. By the end of the year after that, easily 120,000. So if you look at the patient numbers that we have in the pipeline and then look at that compared to those projections, you can see there's a lot of room to accelerate growth relative to what we've suggested in terms of guidance. So basically, it's $500. I'm going to call it $500 per patient. It's really 600 roughly, but let's say 500. Yeah.
Okay. $500 per patient per year. If you have 100,000 patients, that's $50 million. Did I do the math correct? Yeah.
Sorry, what was your math?
100,000 patients.
Yes.
At $500 a year is $50 million. $50 million.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and 100,000 patients is like, it's nothing. I mean, we have 300 million people in this country.
Well, and I mean, that's at that's at that price. But we, are trending towards a higher price. So over the last few months, most of the patients we've added are at $100 US per patient per month because they're using our care management services. So, obviously the more of our modules, the more of our services that patients are using, the higher the revenue per patient, and therefore the fewer patients we need to have in order to hit our milestones, revenue milestones.
Okay, so that's another interesting point. So you have kind of tiered pricing model. You have so it's not just $50 a month. It could be $100 a month, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Anyone who's using our care management services, it's closer to $100 per patient per month.
Okay, so again, 100,000 is not. It's not. I mean, you're getting. I mean, you have with this deal, you can have just the Florida deal. You could have 5,000. 5,000 here, 5,000 here. All of a sudden, you're at 100,000. So,
yeah,
when do you expect to hit that 100,000 milestone?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the guidance we provided the market suggests that it would be not 2022 but 2023. What I've always said about our guidance is I think there's a lot of potential upside there. So I think what will happen is over the rest of this year, you'll see really significant growth in the second half of this year. And at that point, we'll be able to revisit guidance based on data so that investors have a lot of confidence in the numbers that we're projecting. And, at this point, I think we want to be very conservative in terms of our guidance because we are early stage and, you get into crazy numbers, people don't necessarily, believe or understand that space. But we are very, very well positioned to not just hit our numbers over the coming years, but to really blow them out of the water. And just based on the contracts we have now, I mean, look at the contract we announced in California, where we have, they have 500 clinics and 5,000 physicians, and it's just it's hundreds of thousands of patients. So it doesn't take a lot of these accounts to get into really very, very high patient numbers. And so I think we're very well positioned to not just, meet our forecasted milestones in the near term, but to really significantly exceed them as we grow and move into 2022 and beyond.
Okay. Yeah, it seems like okay. So I'm kind of again, I'm reading between the lines here. Is you're being conservative, like 100,000 it could happen much quicker. I mean, and I'm looking at the kind of the pace. It's an accelerating pace of new contracts, which is I think the key word is accelerating. And I mean, I think if the market sees you sign up, I don't know, let's say 5 more of these deals by, I don't know, let's say May. I'm just saying May. So that would, potentially that could put you on a path to getting that 100,000 within 12 months.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, we issued guidance at the beginning of January when, the vaccine rollout path was still a little unclear. And I'm certainly starting to feel a lot more optimistic about that vaccine rollout. And we're certainly getting the right signals from clients that they want to get moving and start finalizing the implementation plan. So they're really ready to move once their staff and patients have been vaccinated. So, I think it'll be a very good year. The second half of this year in particular, but we are already seeing growth. But I think 2022 is just going to be really explosive as we ramp up with each of the clients we already have, and not to mention we are adding new clients every month.
Okay, so and again, so you're going to be profitable in the next quarter, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, so so things are really on that. Okay, let me jump into a few questions. We got a few minutes.
I know someone asked about the onboarding process. Onboarding
is let's jump to that question here. There we go, from Ethan.
Yeah, so onboarding is very simple. We can do it all virtually, so we don't have to actually be there. And basically, it's a doctor writes a prescription for the patient to be onboarded onto our platform. So to start to receive remote patient monitoring or chronic care management or one of the other services. If they need devices, if they don't already have a glucose meter, a blood pressure cuff, or a scale, or whatever they need, the doctor can write a prescription to a durable medical equipment provider, and they'll ship the devices. So, we've onboarded patients with brand new clients in a week. So we can do that quite quickly. What usually is the limiting reagent, and speaking from my chemical engineering days in the equation is that healthcare, in general, healthcare organizations like to stage rollouts. So, they may have 100,000 patients, but they might want to start with one facility, and then, the next month they might add 3. And so we're really providing guidance based on the most conservative projections of our clients, our current clients, as of January when we issued the guidance. But we've certainly found that as we start to onboard patients and clients understand how simple the process is and how significant the revenue upside is for them, and that they start to accelerate over their initial implementation plans. So.
Okay. Shafin is asking, okay, a great question. What's going to be the biggest challenge you're going to face in the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, I mean, I think, when you talk about volatility, as this individual did, the volatility is in the capital market side. It's not so much in the healthcare space. So, the healthcare space has pretty consistent behavior and has for decades and decades. So, the pandemic threw a little bit of a monkey wrench in the works, but, without question, the healthcare industry goes where the money is. And so, because Medicare and Medicaid have really increased the funding around these programs and have validated that, they need to continue to do that because it's saving them so much money on the hospitalizations. And, the volatility doesn't really exist in the healthcare space other than things like surprise global pandemics. But hopefully
maybe that's what he was referring to as volatility. There's things like that or whatever. You never know.
Yeah, and I think in terms of the volatility in the capital markets, the bottom line is we're building a business that has very strong fundamentals. So this isn't a business built on hype, and we'll be profitable next quarter. We'll be throwing off a lot of free cash from that point on. And we've demonstrated that we have a lot of traction in this market and that that's growing every day. And so I think, capital markets volatility tends to affect companies that are more kind of at a conceptual stage, and then companies that are consistently delivering real revenues. So, we don't worry too much about the capital market side. We focus just on building an actual viable business and that has really strong fundamentals. So I think over the long term, those are the businesses that succeed.
Yeah, I mean, well, one of the kind of the realities of our market is that, because RHT is, it's in the micro cap space.
Yeah.
So right now, all the micro caps, all the kind of the high, the Tesla effect is really crushing across the board.
Yeah.
But I think that could be a very interesting opportunity for investors. Again, we're not giving buy sell recommendations or anything, but
no.
The valuation is becoming compelling because, again, the fundamentals of the company are accelerating, and you got this real path to get into.
And I think you have to look at the fundamentals of any business you invest in, and the advantage of a business that's success is predicated on organic growth is you're creating real value. If you are buying a company just because it's doing a lot of acquisitions, you never know how successfully those acquisitions will be integrated and whether or not there's
never know.
So, not that there's anything wrong with acquiring companies, and if the acquirer is really committed to integrating that new acquisition like Teladoc with Livongo, they may very well be ultimately successful with that integration, but there's a long period of disruption associated with bringing in a new company and integrating it. And sometimes the synergies aren't as real in the end as they seem to be when the acquisition first took place. So I think the benefit of buying into a company that's projections are based on organic growth is you're really creating something of value, and there's not that inherent risk of will the acquisition be easily integrated and are there real synergies there or not.
Okay, so yeah, I guess the difference is So with companies with the acquisition model, investors love to hear about acquisitions. Well, in your case, they just got to watch the contracts because it's the same. It's the organic growth is they have to keep it on. Okay, Lisa, I'm going to wrap up two last questions here.
Okay.
One near-term news flow. What else can we expect next 30 days? Anything in the pipeline?
Yeah, well, I can't tell you that because that would be selective disclosure. But I will say that we do
There are
continue to
thousands of
sign.
people watching right now,
Yeah, we
probably.
do continue to sign new contracts all the time, and we are, very committed to being transparent with the market as we sign new clients. So there'll be lots of updates. I mean, we expect to be very frequently communicating positive news to the market, and not just in the next 30 days, but for quite a few years to come. There's a lot of growth going on within the company and a lot of new customer traction.
Okay. Last question. We always ask this, in your right now, where we are March 17th, in your opinion, top 3 reasons for investors to want to, own the stock today.
Yeah, I mean, I think, from the market perspective, there's a lot of market pull here that didn't exist a few years ago. So with Medicare and Medicaid significantly increasing reimbursement and adding to the number of billing codes, there's a lot of pull for our solution in the market right now. So that's one. Number 2 is it's a massive market. We're looking at over 37 million Medicare and Medicaid patients who have 2 or more chronic diseases. So, there's a pretty clear path to generating tens of billions of dollars in revenue in this space. And, I think the third reason is we are the first mover in this space. We've established ourselves as the standard of care, and we're just in the process of, moving through. We've got, there's 5% of the market, the patient market, who've onboarded or enrolled in any kind of a program, even vaguely related to what we do. That leaves 95% of the market still to be enrolled and onboarded onto a platform. And we're really in the best possible position in the community care space to become the market leader there.
Okay. Fantastic. Lisa, thank you. On that note, again, I want to thank you and look forward to hearing more good news from RHT in the coming weeks, more contracts.
Yes. Thanks, Jack. Thanks very much. And thank you, everyone. And if anyone has questions that weren't answered, just email our IR team and they'll answer them for you.
Fantastic. Thank you again, Lisa.
Thanks. Take care.
Okay, let's get ready for Victory Square. Okay, great news from RHT. Accelerating contracts. All right, let me just pull this up over here. Okay. Okay, Shafin.
Hey, brother, how are you?
All right, welcome back. We're live. Let me just pull this up, make sure everything is okay. Here we go. Okay. You can hear me okay?
Can you see me okay? Okay.
Yeah. There was a freeze. Okay, fantastic. All right. I like the new background there. You got the Victory Square logo in the back.
Yeah, no, it's the same logo. Just I think you're getting us to position the camera better now, so you can see it.
Oh, we didn't have it on the screen before. That's what it was. All right. No, so a lot of exciting news. I want to get into all that stuff. Let me just do a quick intro, for anybody that's just tuning in for the video afterwards. Welcome everybody to Wall Street Reporter's next Superstock live stream from March 17th, 2021. We are back with Victory Square VST on the CSC, VSQTF over the counter. We're going to be speaking with Shafin Diamond, the CEO. Shafin Diamond Tejani, the CEO. And for anybody that's new to our program, our goal is to bring you those stocks which have that 10x to 100x upside potential. So again, these are companies going after massive market opportunities, multi-billion-dollar opportunities, multiple catalysts in place, and really at that key inflection point. So Shafin, welcome back. I think you got the catalysts are starting to happen for VST this week.
Just getting started.
Okay.
So I think that. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it froze up.
Sorry about that. Yeah, no. Catalysts. I mean, there's a number of catalysts. I think we've kind of talked about it before. There's so much in the hopper, and so slowly some of the stuff that we had sitting around in the basement is coming to light now. So.
You got these, you got the unicorn farm there, and now you're starting to harvest these unicorns. You got $6 million coming in from VPN this week to announce. You got $1.5 million from a warrant exercise and a blockchain. Walk us through those things and what is that kind of is that an indication of what else is hidden in the VST?
We've put this out.
Hang on. Sure.
Sorry, I don't know why I keep.
Okay. Wait. Hello. You there? You there?
Yeah, is it?
It freezes up. I don't know if for some reason on your end it's freezing up all the good stuff it freezes up on.
Yeah, sorry. Is it still frozen?
No, it's a little bit slow. Do you want to maybe log out and come back in? Maybe that will help.
Yeah, let me do that.
Are you using Wi-Fi or is it
Wi-Fi?
It's Wi-Fi. It could be the Wi-Fi.
Let me pop out.
Okay. I'll be standing by. Okay. All right, stand by, everybody. This is going to be very worth your while. Great things happening at VST.
Is good?
I think it's a little better. Okay, so let's try again because we got there's too many good things happening. Okay, give us the kind of details on the VPN deal, the blockchain, the warranty exercise, the Argo thing.
Yeah.
What's happening over there?
So, I think we've talked about this. We've got a bunch of different projects, some that we've kind of communicated to the market, others, which is just software and technology and IP kind of being built, in VST. And so the VPN was one of those products that we've had in the hopper for a couple of years now. And we were kind of looking forward, I think decentralization, privacy, these are all big issues now, but these are technologies that we've been building for a couple of years now. And so there was an opportunity for us to take that IP, which wasn't showing up on our books, and sell it to another publicly traded company. And for VST, it's great because we're able to take something that, was being built that's not showing up on our balance sheet, converted it and kind of handed off to a company, which was Cloud9 Education CNI, where they've got the capital and the resources to grow and scale that business. And for VST and VST shareholders, we're taking equity in that company. So as well as it does, there's liquidity, and it crystallizes a value on our books. And that's one of a number of, kind of examples. Argo was another one, which was a blockchain company that we've, it's traded on the LSE, London Stock Exchange. Market cap's under $1 billion. Started in our office, Launch Academy, in 2017. And we provided advisory services for this company early on, and those warrants, I mean, to put this in perspective, the exercise cost is about $49,000 Canadian. The market value is 1.5 million. Again, two examples. We announced a release, I think earlier, it might have just come out, where there's about 6 or 7 other projects that we've been working on that are going to be kind of on deck next. So you've heard about fans, you've heard about Game On, you've heard about immersive, and now we're hearing about the Argo warrants and the VPN. But there's a number of other projects that we're going to be bringing to light soon. So
okay, so it's not. I mean, it's very exciting that there's constantly this. You're creating this. You're monetizing. These investments. So and this shareholder value being created. And I think it's important to emphasize that you basically have, again, we call it this unicorn farm. Multiple shots on goal. You have 20 plus portfolio companies right now.
Correct,
in Victory Square.
Yep. And it's not only that there's over 20 portfolio companies, but the other part of it too is these are companies, in addition to investors getting access to a diverse portfolio of themes. These are themes that are not only relevant today, but we're already thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years ahead. So, in this portfolio, not only is an investor getting, a hedged exposure or diverse exposure to a number of really, really good products, but they're not one-offs. They're not, what's hot today. These are a number of companies that are going to hit catalysts either this week, this month, this year, or next year and onwards. And we're looking at disruptive technology like robotics and DNA sequencing, blockchain, AI. So things that are not going away. I was having a conversation with someone. And
it's essentially you're really like the ARC. You're like an early stage ARC. You're like the Kathy Wood, but with a beard.
Yeah, with a beard. Kathy Wood. Well, I mean, and mad props to her. She's unbelievable. The investment thesis they have and the results that they've delivered are great. And I tell some people, Victory Square is kind of like the stock that you put a ring on it. It's your forever stock. It's not that summer fling or winter fling. It's your forever stock. You buy it and you hold it, and it'll continue to produce results year after year. So.
So you have so essentially your focus is on these cutting edge, the technologies of the future, disruptive technologies. Let's for anybody new, let's just kind of give a recap of the segments that you're in. A couple of the companies. I mean, I don't know if we're not going to have time to go through all 20, but give us the main one, the ones that are kind of top of mind at the moment.
So right now, big focuses for us are digital health. Everything around quality of life. So digital health. Gaming and esports is big with Game On and Fans Unite. Blockchain is a big focus of ours and everything around that crypto space. So the Cloud9 company, Covalent, kind of fits within that. Virtual and augmented reality is something that we have a big anchor in. So immersive tech, which I think you'll be hearing about very soon. Cybersecurity. So pretty much next generation internet and anything to do with digital health, like quality of life. Those are big focuses that make up the VST portfolio companies. So not only companies that are making money and doing something disruptive, but you can feel good about a lot of those investments as well.
I think it's important to emphasize that Victory Square it's kind of undervalued. I think the market doesn't really, they're kind of undervalued because you have these 20 companies and they're not really sure what there is, but really there's really an X factor there because again, there's this X factor for these upstart surprises like you're getting right now with this, just this week you're monetizing $7.5 million basically, and it's just like something that was like forgotten about almost. I mean, it wasn't your main thing.
Yeah.
You got Fans Unite that spun out last year, which you still have a position in, and that stock is doing well. You have now Game On. I want to ask about the Game On. Give us an update. What's the status of that right now in terms of when is that going to come to the market?
Yeah, so Game On, we announced I think last week that we just closed an oversubscribed $5.8 million financing. And so really interesting about that project, this was something that the demand was significant, but instead of taking it and doing something that was brokered with bankers, we gave VST shareholders a first crack. So companies financed, all of the listing audit requirements have been submitted to the exchange, and now we're just waiting for that green light to be listed. So it should be listed very, 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 very soon. Rockstar team too, again, so it's capitalized, listing very, very soon, in a really good hot space, and their management team is unbelievable. Like their board, you got Take-Two Interactive, you've got DraftKings, Roblox, you've got guys that part of NBA's Top Shop at Dapper Labs. So funded, great space, great team, listing very, very shortly.
Okay. And they're going to have, what is it, almost $6 million by the time
they've got so they've already got cash in the till too. So they're going to be listing, with, they'll probably have little over $7 million kind of in the hopper with a low burn, and a really
yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, I was worried about So Game On is going to be in a very good position. That's going to be, so that stock is going to be trading when by April, end of April.
It should be trading by April for sure. I mean, like I think so I shouldn't say we're expecting this month, but it's in the hands of the exchange right now. So as soon as they green light it, we've received approval from everyone else. So hopefully by April for sure.
Okay, I want to ask you before we talked about potentially doing a share dividend of a spin. Have you decided how that's going to work?
Yeah, so we are doing a share dividend. So this year we'll be doing a share dividend in Game On.
Okay, we got an internet delay.
Sorry.
Shafin? Okay. All Okay, it's frozen. All right, this is Shafin. This type of freezing only happens when people have something really good to say. All right. Okay. You there?
I'm there.
Okay. All right. Let's. Okay. So yeah, let's start again. So the share dividend of Game On, when is that going to happen? Suspense. This is.
Yeah, sorry. I apologize, Jack. I don't know what's going on today.
Okay. The Game On share dividend. Have you finalized the plans for that?
Yeah. I'm scared I'm going to talk and it's going to freeze. You can hear me now.
You will, for sure. As soon as you say something valuable.
Yeah, Game On share dividend is happening. Immersive. We're going to do a share dividend not just in Game On, but in Game On Immersive. And there's one other portfolio company that we're going to add to that. It is happening. The timeline of it will be announced shortly. So, but it is happening.
Okay. Do you know how many shares? Do you know what the ratio is? That, or you're gonna what? You have any ideas?
So I think we're looking, because we want to do it in all three companies that, this year, we're looking at doing it as a fraction of the market cap. So, generally you'd give a dividend and it would be, a 5-cent dividend, depending on where your share price is trading. We're looking at figuring out the cash value and then converting it into the stock to distribute to our shareholders. So it will happen. I think it's going to be very similar to, what you would see, a blue chip company issue on an annual basis, a dividend, because we want this to be something that happens on a yearly basis. But it's a very fixed amount that will be, that'll be consistent for investors to know it'll happen on an annual basis. So it'll be very.
That'll be very, very interesting. Once that happens, I think it's going to be a game changer for the stock, because people are going to, because people love to get that type of, share dividends. It's exciting. Now you're going to have, they're going to have a piece of these different companies. I think that's going to be the key to unlocking the value of VST. One of the key.
Yeah, and on the unlocking of value, I think, we talked about, for us, we're long term, so we don't get too faded by, the share price on a daily basis, because we know what's under the hood. But we do know that there are things like analyst coverage, working closer with some strategic investors like institutions, that those eyeballs, getting them into the VST story will help all shareholders long term. So, there are things around, bringing strategic investors into the business and specific institutions so that the business does get covered. Because I think it's that coverage that'll get it to a wider audience, get those institutional buyers in, that'll help all shareholders kind of in the company long term. Because we're long on this. We know that, we're not going away.
So you have some average that's going to start shortly? You're expecting?
Yeah, so I mean, the one challenge with, and I think anyone that's been on the show that's in the company perspective realizes that, a lot of investment banks will hold this carrot, like, come and do a financing with us and we'll cover you. So, we're having to evaluate all different types of situations, but long term, we know that we need to get coverage to get the story in the eyes of institutions, which will really help all shareholders in it, because they'll come, they'll buy, and they have a long term kind of vision. So, we expect to get coverage very, very shortly.
Okay. Okay. No, interesting. So, but the Game On deal, that was a non-broker deal. You did that just with shareholders, no bank.
We sent. So basically, what we did is we sent an email to all of our everyone in the VST ecosystem to allow them to participate. And then when that leaked, we had brokers and bankers reaching out to us to jump in. I mean, I think Matt Bailey, the CEO of Game On, I think he had probably 5 or 6 times what they took in demand. And it was hard to squeeze people back, but we made a point. Anyone in the VST ecosystem that requested a participation, we made sure that they were fit in and we got their allocation in first. So
okay, yeah, because Matt, when Vahid brought him on last month, I mean he had a great presentation. I think the audience was very, very impressed. I mean, our audience was super impressed by Matt and what he's doing.
And they'll be more impressed when they see him list. I mean, I think they've got some amazing things going on. And keep an eye out for Immersive. So Immersive's dropping next in a similar fashion.
Okay, and what is that? And when is that going to come out?
Immersives are virtual and augmented reality business. They've been in business for a couple of years, over $1 million in revenue. They've built an amazing, I don't want to give it away, but amazing VR experience that, works well during a pandemic and post-pandemic. And I think they're getting, they've worked with clients like eBay, Intel, Allegiant Airlines, like, ESPN, like they've got an amazing roster. We're wholly owned by VST, doesn't show up on the books. We're spinning them out too as well. And I think similar to what we did with Game On, we're going to send an email to all of our VST shareholders to give them first crack at Immersive before it drops. And it's dropping soon, so keep an eye out.
Okay, what's any timeline?
Well, we're expecting Immersive to be listed, in Q2. So
Okay.
yeah, Q2 of this year. So again, because it's wholly owned, it's been audited, and it's kind of gone through all that process. But they're hitting an inflection point right now, and they've dropped a new product that's going to be fully launching in the summer, and so we want to line everything up because they're getting a lot of buzz around it. Forbes just actually covered one of their new products.
So what was that?
Forbes, sorry, just covered the new product. Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Okay. Okay, Shafin, let's wrap up. What else do you have? What else is in the pipeline for VST next 30 days?
Yeah, so there's a number of things. So we talked about, we're hoping Game On is getting listed. We're going to drop Immersive, so keep an eye out for that. We've got a corporate update that just went out today that gives a bit more coverage on some of the other portfolio companies that we haven't talked about. We've got a new roster of companies kind of in the hopper that you'll be hearing about in the renewable energy space, plant-based space, NFTs, digital asset management.
NFTs, we got to get the NFTs. That's the hottest thing.
Well, so it's again, these are things that have been working on for 2 years, right? So it's not a new concept. I think a lot of people are hearing about it, but so yeah, I think big catalyst. Keep an eye out for Game On listing, Immersive, email to VST shareholders to participate, analyst coverage, new investments in a portfolio. So commercializing some stuff that you hadn't heard about. I mean, you heard about Argo and the VPN, but wait till you see some of the other stuff that's coming out.
Okay, no, it's really incredible because everybody wants to invest in the big theme. Like I always thought, hey, this is one thing you want to be you want to be investing in something which is riding a big trend, and you're really like Victory Square. I mean, you're really riding 20. I mean, like every major trend, whether it's, and these are things you're not just jumping on this week. I mean, this is stuff that
for years
you were working on 3 years ago, whatever it was. It's been so.
Oh, these are seeds planted 3 years ago. That's why we're always going to have a first mover advantage on everything. Okay,
excellent. Shafin, I want to ask you. So we're gonna I guess we're gonna have Vahid on probably in a week or so. He's gonna be introducing the new companies. That's what we're gonna be doing, right? He's gonna be bringing on the CEOs and all that. Let's wrap up. Our favorite question to ask here is at the end is, in your opinion, right now, top 3 reasons for investors to want to own VST shares today.
Yeah, I would say the first is, I think people invest to make money. VST, the entry point for VST right now to make money is great. So I think that's the biggest catalyst. The second, when you make an investment, you want to mitigate your downside risk exposure. We've got over 20 portfolio companies in there. So, you're not jumping into something that, that has a risk of just being a fad. So there's diversity in that investment to mitigate your risk exposure. And the third, you can feel good about what you're investing in. A lot of our companies are quality of life type businesses, just looking at the stuff that's happening in the digital health space. So I would say, A, to make money, it's a great entry point. 2, mitigate your downside risk exposure. You're getting access to a number of companies and feel good about what you're investing in. And like I said earlier, Victory Square, I mean, the way we want you to think about it, it's the forever stock. It's a stock you put a ring on. So ring on it.
20, it's the unicorn stuff. 20 plus potential unicorns in there.
Yeah.
Multiple shots on goal.
Shots on goal. Well, no, unicorns, because shots on goals, yeah. Or yeah.
Exactly. All right, Shafin, thank you again. We'll catch you on the next live stream. Thank you, everybody, for joining today's live stream. We'll see you again.
Sorry about the technical difficulties.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.